Today to the Town of Monroe Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for November 26th, 2019. Our chairman, Mike Murphy, couldn't make it this evening, so myself as the deputy chairperson will assume the responsibilities of the chair for tonight's meeting. First on the agenda will be our roll call.
Peter?
Here.
Michael is absent. Kevin?
Here.
Austin?
Here.
Aaron?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Very good. Next, if we could stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just some housekeeping. There are fire exits, which are to the rear of the room. If those are inaccessible, there's fire exits behind us here. So we have a full agenda today. We're going to have 3 public hearings and 1 application for new business. So the first item agenda that we're going to go through is Mr. Berchtold. We'd like to ask him to come up to the table.
We should entertain a motion to open the public hearing. He's ready.
Could we get a motion to open the public hearing?
I make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, this is now a public hearing.
You have to go through.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There we go.
Fait accompli.
Yeah.
Necessary.
We got 2 more.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to get to practice. Mr. Berchtold, so if you would please just review for us this application, and also if we could review what variances it is that you're requesting.
I can give a brief overview of the project. Just to review. Okay. My name is Cale Pavelski from Peters Eck & Thau Engineering and Surveying.
Cliff Berchtold, I'm the owner, along with my wife.
So what we're presenting tonight is the Lands of Berchtold minor subdivision. We're looking to subdivide an existing lot with 2 homes, both existing, into 2 separate lots, 1 house on each lot. As I just said, both homes are already built. We are not proposing any new construction. The way that we've separated the lots out, try to move this over. I'll hold it. The way we've separated out the lots, we're trying to keep the 1 home off to the side, just kind of on its own little separate property. In order to do that, we're looking to receive 4 variances in net lot area, lot width, rear yard, and for lot coverage.
And the reason we're trying to do that is because Marcy and I, having lived in Monroe, she's been here all our life, I've been here 60 years at that property. We'd like to move up to the Albany area to be with our daughter, her other daughter, and her family. And Bethany, our older daughter, and her family live in that smaller lot that we're proposing here. So we'd like to subdivide so they can stay on the property. Their daughter would be the 4th generation there. They could stay on the property, and the larger piece of the property could be sold because they couldn't afford to stay on the property by themselves with 2 houses.
Got it. So just a couple things. Actually, you have questions from us at this point, whether if other people have comments. But in the application, it states that the lot area, obviously this is in the RR1 is not correct on here, correct? It's
The OSR3.
It's OSR3, and it's 3-acre minimum. In the application, it's stating that you desire to do 2.03 acres?
The 2.03 acres is in net lot area, and we're reducing, subtracting out the impervious coverage. The gross lot area would be about 2.27.
But is if the total lot, the total size of the proposed lot is 2.27 acres?
Correct.
Right.
So is that not, Dave, is that not what we should be considering as lot size?
I think that I think the net is what you should be looking at, which is what the planning board sent to you as lot area, net lot area of 2.03, with the required minimum of 3. And I think what the applicant is here looking for is that level of relief to make two sort of, one oversized lot and one undersized
No,
lot.
understood,
Yeah.
see, this lot is 2.27, so how is 2.03 they're taking off the, that's
If you
not,
look on the plans, we have a coverage calculation for lot 2,
okay,
where we calculate the impervious coverage of that lot,
Right.
which takes into account the building area, the pavement, and the sidewalk. That impervious coverage is taken out of the gross lot area, that creates
Okay.
that net lot.
that's how net lot coverage is?
Yeah, under this code, that's my understanding, yeah,
Okay, so then we're at that, okay, that's fine.
right.
The other question I had, and I went out and I took a look at the property, the rear of the house is actually the side of the house.
Right, if you look at Bethany and Ron's house on the smaller lot,
Right.
as you look at it, the barn is to the side of the house. However, the house, if you look at it from Circle Drive, I don't know which way they want to do this, but from Circle Drive, it would be the rear of the house
Right.
because the house is sort of set up sideways towards Circle Drive.
But that's how it's calculated? Like,
I don't know.
so the positioning of the house on the lot is based upon the road coverage?
The positioning of the lot where we determined which way the setbacks would go
Yeah.
was based off of that main road, Circle Drive. We assumed the lot was facing towards Circle Drive.
Right, right.
That driveway, we didn't want to face the lot towards that.
Right. But
That was how we
yeah.
decided those
Okay,
regards.
But what actually determines, is it up
front
to
of the
the applicant to determine?
No, I think it's by code, and I think that our building inspector would have looked at it, but it's the side that would have fronted the street, the actual public street.
It's the covered portion, between the covered portion and the roadway that it faces is the front yard.
Okay.
Right, regardless of
Right,
which
where
way
the
you
house
turn
is
the house.
situated, okay.
Right, it's just a definition under the code.
So like this from here to here would
Right.
technically
Be the front yard.
be the front yard,
Okay,
and then
okay.
these would be sides.
Right.
Understood. Okay, and,
Making this the rear yard.
right.
Yeah, but it's your point is well taken, that it's an anomaly here. If it's facing one way, it really,
Right.
looking at it, it's traditionally would be considered a side yard,
Got
but
it.
under the code, it's the rear yard.
Okay. And the other question I had was the road, the driveway there is obviously inclusive on the property. So what would happen in the event of a subdivision? That's basically the access point to the rear house. So what would just be would they just easement?
I believe the planning board had discussed this and had reached some kind of an agreement of some type where they planned on having a shared use. It's a pre-existing use, first of all. It's sort of grandfathered, but it's sort of a shared use agreement, a legal agreement, so that there isn't like a problem in the future with lot owners that don't agree.
Right.
It has to be all written down in some way that the planning board is happy with it.
Right.
And they said that was something they could deal with on their end.
Okay. Is that something we have to deal with?
No, if the planning board would ordinarily be dealing with things like that, and I'm sure that the planning board is not going to approve this without some condition to the approval that a shared use agreement or an easement be granted that's satisfactory and form to the town attorney.
And if I could add one other thing, they said, I think if I remember this right, that this is conditional on just these buildings here, no additional buildings.
I think you mentioned that
Should
last
somebody in the future want to add a building or add a subdivision or something, that joint use driveway would be reviewed by the planning board, and they might require that builder or that person in the future to build another totally separate access,
Correct.
right?
Yes, at the planning board, part of their resolution will be in the event that this 16 acres of the remaining 14 gets subdivided,
Right.
they need to provide a better driveway to the main house, leaving the smaller house with the other driveway. It would no longer be a shared driveway at that time.
Okay.
In other words, it can service only the one existing additional, or if
It would
it's,
only service the two houses that are currently there. They'll allow that now because it was grandfathered in. But if an additional subdivision takes place, they have to provide another driveway to the main house.
Okay. Questions, guys? And just for information, the Circle Drive is pretty much RR1, which is more, they're all acre
Right,
type
it's all
lots.
RR1, right?
Got it. And then behind you is Village of
To
Monroe.
the side of that, or
To
the,
the-
whatever you call it.
This
Yeah.
is the town
That's-
boundary right there.
That's village, and then behind our bigger house going to the south, that's the golf course, 220 acres, and that's RR1 as well. So we're like a little piece of LSR3 stuck between them all.
Got it. And the Orange County the OCPD?
They said that there's no,
No issues?
Yeah, the
No
letter
issues?
is in your packet, just
Okay.
came back
Yeah.
today.
Got it.
You emailed that today, right? That was that letter?
Yep. Oh, actually, Pete, you probably didn't have it because you picked up the packet early.
Yeah, that's fine.
They came in today.
And they said, planning board, it doesn't, okay, that's fine. Okay, so if we don't have any other questions, we'd like to invite the public, if there's anybody here who would like to speak about this application.
Can I just ask one question before we open it up to the
Yeah,
public?
well,
Yeah.
Just because I just want to make sure I
Hold on one
understand.
second.
So this lot 2, this lot will not have a front yard?
Well,
it would have like a
well,
300-foot front yard.
It'll still have a front, if you lived in that house, you would think of your front yard, I think, as facing the driveway.
No, I mean a front yard as per zoning requirements. So this lot does not have a front yard. This lot has 2 side yards, 3 side yards, and a rear yard. It does not have a front yard.
My understanding is that the other yard, the sides and the rear yard are based off of the position of the front yard. I don't think you could have side and rear yards without a front yard.
I see what you're looking at, though, the way it's depicted on the map, which I just noticed as well, is probably what you're looking at on the front.
Is it legal to have
It
a
says
lot without a
50
front
foot,
yard?
it says 50-foot side yard setback. I don't think it doesn't have a front yard. If I'm guessing, we can talk to the engineer about why he's put that there. My understanding would be that, by definition, that spot between Circle Drive and the dwelling would be considered the front yard under the code. But, could you address that? In other words, it looks, what's being pointed out is that
they're talking about for that project.
if you're looking at it, just to the right of proposed lot number 2, those words, it says 50-foot side yard setback, and then above proposed lot 2, it says 50-foot side yard setback.
You're referring to like right here about.
Yeah,
So like
yeah, so where is the front yard under the code on this parcel?
Right, no, but
I believe,
it's saying
I'd have
side yard
to
setback.
double
Side.
check, but I believe we're referring to this section here as,
Side yard.
this section here as the front yard.
Sort of the north
This is the
side.
section that
If you're
is, the
checking.
section that is closest to the road.
Yeah, but that front yard occurs on the other lot. This lot doesn't seem to have a front yard. The zoning code requires a front yard. And there's only a very limited amount of lot line that would be, adjacent to the road. So that would be, by definition, terminology of the zoning code, that would be your front lot line.
Wouldn't the front yard run between the Bardossi property, which is where the north symbol is for the north under your hand? That's Bardossi, all the way down to the house, which is probably more than an acre of front yard.
Right, but, yeah.
Wouldn't that be the yard? Because that's the one.
It
that-
would, but the survey states 50-foot side yard setback right from that front.
I should be correct.
The definition of a front lot line is a lot line which separates a lot from a street. or other means of egress, of access. What kind of a lot is this? This is an interior lot. All right. So where is the front lot line?
May I use the map here? Because I'm not, to me it's clear, but maybe I'm just because I'm a layman. This is Circle Drive running around here on the north side, more or less, of the lot. So I think, and the house is here, I think all this property from the house to here, I mean theoretically it could be lawn if you wanted to, but a lot of it's trees. This is a large front lot line. It probably is called side for some reason, but perhaps that's an error. But the house, if they're talking about by the barn is the back lot, then to me, by logic, the front yard would be the opposite side of the house, facing the street.
Right.
And this was, when we calculated this using, trying to create the building setback lines, we used this as the front yard.
Right, but
to create the
right,
setback.
but I think
I had a conversation with Ben a couple of times about exactly this, and I had sent from my own project, actually my own house. We had the same exact, different numbers. He had originally told me that we had to come for a variance for my own property. So I questioned what the code said. And my understanding is what I was told with the conversation that I believe Ben had with the town attorney's office was that their determination was that what you're saying is correct, that it's between the street and the covered portion of the dwelling. So that huge front yard and then a 20-something or other foot backyard, which is, I believe, what you were explaining.
Right.
Is that what you were? That's what I think the code says.
right, but this doesn't state. I mean, that's Austin's point. It doesn't state that, right? So if you go,
Yeah, this is the official drawing for it that's going to establish the variance request. So it should be correct.
right.
Okay.
So from the street there should be, on this map, there should be a front yard setback listed.
Okay.
I mean, certainly, I don't want to hold up
Yeah,
this plus of that, but I mean,
It's very likely the same, right? I mean, it's still 50 feet, because I think what he's done is depicted the building envelope per whichever the setbacks would be,
Right.
in terms of the dotted line. And I think it's tricky because you have a side yard setback in the spot where he's putting side yard setback, because that's not where the street is. Yet if you follow that dotted line down to the little point below it, the distance between that and the street is, I guess maybe that's that's the area where the front yard would be. But in either event, from wherever the street is all the way back to the house, somewhere in there is the front yard, and it's certainly massively in excess of whatever the required front yard would be.
I would like to also say the front yard lot line that we have, it does have a length of 60 feet. So if you're going to back it up, as you back up, it's not getting narrower, it's getting wider.
What's the definition of the front yard from the code? To clarify it.
I don't have it.
I mean, that's not the
I'll give it to
actual
you.
definition.
That's why
I mean, here.
I didn't bring my paper copy.
It's here. So what he's saying is that the 60 feet, I mean, he's well beyond it. Open space, yard, extended full width, blah, blah, blah. Depth of the front yard should be measured between the front line of the building and the street line. Covered porches don't include by this way over space-wise.
Got it.
And then everything else is based on its opposite, rear yard, opposite front yard, which is the determining factor is the front yard.
Got it. Okay. I mean,
I guess maybe it's just I'm not as experienced with laying out these types of properties, but I would think that the side yard doesn't start until the front yard ends.
Because it depends on how you lay out the lots. I mean, again, this lot is, we will admit it's unique, it's a bit of an anomaly in that how the house is facing.
right.
The house isn't necessarily facing the street, where we would consider the front yard. But if you go off of where that main street is, this is this is your front yard.
Yeah, but I'm saying for purposes of this drawing, that you're carrying the side yard all the way to the front, and there's no formal front yard. So shouldn't there be a front yard and then the side yard setbacks would start after the front yard? I'm just wondering.
No.
I'm asking
What
to
would
see
you
this.
like? What would you want to see on that map that would satisfy what you think is the?
I don't even know what the implications are.
Right,
I'm just
right.
trying to understand the graphic and how that,
Yep.
I wouldn't necessarily, I guess if what you're asking is, change this to showing as a front yard. I don't know if I would necessarily do that because it's not on the street.
It doesn't have to be at the street, it has to just be facing the street.
Yeah, and even then, you could argue that it isn't necessarily, that's not facing the street, that's
What's
facing another lot.
Yeah,
But the side,
The closest lot line on the street is the one that's 60 feet wide.
The definition of a side yard, it says that open unoccupied space, blah, blah, blah. It says extending from the rear line of the front yard to the front line of the rear yard. So that would mean that you couldn't possibly carry a side yard all the way to the front of the lot because it has to end at the back of the front yard.
I think your point is well taken, but I think also in regard to two thoughts. One, I think ultimately it's up to Ben to determine what the front yard and side yard is and whether it's accurately depicted on the map. But I think insofar as this application is concerned, I think under whatever definition, I think where it's depicted there, it's not depicted in a way to say, okay, there's a 50-foot side yard setback provided. It's identifying that would be, that's the building envelope, that's required. So it's substantively not even really required for them to have any words on there, other than to just show visually, well, you certainly couldn't build outside that envelope if they were looking to expand it or if this was new construction.
Right.
And regardless, I think wherever you start the front yard and wherever wherever Ben might say, okay, the front yard's here, I don't think there's any, argument
Yeah,
that
more than
that
60.
that the applicant doesn't provide it. I think it's clearly provided for.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if this just simply said 50-foot setback,
But it says,
there'd be no difference.
it says side yard setback.
No, I understand that.
If it, yeah,
But if it just said 50-foot setback, it'd be the same thing.
Right.
yeah, depending, I don't know what the front
60,
yard,
60.
I don't know what the required front yard is
60.
here, 60, so,
Which
Yeah.
the identification of the 60-foot there is.
right.
Okay. I mean, no, these are good questions.
Yeah. If I had to guess, I would say if there was a graphic that would make this more clear, it would be where that dotted line that's showing the building envelope comes to a point on the lower right. And if you took that straight out to the property line, my guess is you'd find that that's 60 feet. And that's probably the front yard. Because that looks to me visually like it's a little bit further than where the 50 yard is to the other line. And that's probably would be a visual depiction of what the required minimum front yard would be.
But you're saying that these surveys, they're not required to identify the side, front, or rear?
I think for a site plan, you certainly would want to do that to make sure that any proposed building is within the proposed, the proper permitted building envelope.
Right.
So I think as a matter of course, these maps that the engineer would provide, by default in the program, it's going to lay it in there, and they're going to show it.
Right.
But I think for the purposes of what this board is looking at, the important one, insofar as that building envelope is concerned, isn't really necessarily that. It's that 21.5 on the rear yard.
Yep.
Which is shown in that back as the side yard, as we discussed before. That's what they're here for, and that's shown clearly on there.
Yeah, no new proposed construction.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. So if there's anybody in the public that would like to speak, they could come up.
You guys want to get up? Yep.
Hi. My name's Michelle Michelle Pampolina. We live at 42 McGarrett Road, and our property is behind what we believe to be the proposed side yard. We just wanted to clarify that based on the graphic.
Could you point?
Yeah.
Okay,
Just so we-
your name again, Michelle, you said?
Yes, Pampolina,
Can you spell that?
Pampolina.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
So I think it's on the back.
So the driveway is, this is the proposed lot, the drive, I would need some assistance.
Caleb, you want to help her, please?
Yeah.
We see your name up there on the
On the
top.
top, lands
If
of
you look at proposed lot number 2 and go straight up.
Okay, we see where your property is.
Pampolina.
Right, Pampolina,
Yep.
okay. So the proposed lot number 2, the one that would be existing, the side yard I believe that they're referring to is the property that would just back us up. So the proposed, the other additional 14 acres is on the other side.
Yes.
That was really our only question because we
Oh.
didn't know that. Yep, so the side yard is going to remain with the property.
Yes.
Okay, okay, that's it, thank you.
Did you have concerns about that? Or?
No, we just
Okay.
wanted to make sure that the property that was there is not part of the sale with potential
Right,
subletting.
okay,
Okay?
Yep.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak on this application? Okay, so to close the public.
If you're satisfied with what's happened and your discussion is complete, then we close the public hearing.
Any more questions, guys?
No.
Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so now the public session is closed, we can now start discussing, what our thoughts are on approval or disapproval of these variances.
Yeah, I think you all have the Town Law 267B standards probably in front of you, and just be guided by each of those. It's a balancing test, and you, in connection with the balancing test, you're weighing the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood and community against the benefit that the applicant is seeking, and you consider the 5 factors, as you all know.
Okay.
So,
Should we read those factors now?
sure, if you'd like to do that, you can go through each one and discuss one by one.
Yep, okay. First factor is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance.
No.
Answer is no.
No.
Number 2 is whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than area variance. No.
No.
Number 3 is whether the requested area variance is substantial.
And keep in mind, any one factor doesn't necessarily dictate what the result is here, and oftentimes if there is a substantial variance, it's mitigated by some other factors or uniqueness of the situation or et cetera.
I mean, the only substantial one that I can see is the rear, which is determined by that.
Yeah, the 21.5 feet.
Yeah. I've gone out to see the property. It doesn't appear that it's out of the ordinary in terms of where the houses are behind it. There's a barn there, so.
Yeah, I mean, substantiality on that factor is also discretionary, right? You can look at it in terms of the absolute numbers, you can look at it in terms of the percentages, but then you can also look at mitigating factors. If the numbers themselves are substantial, or the percentages are substantial, you're permitted to look at mitigating factors as whatever the unique circumstances might be that make it, in the grand scheme of things, not as substantial as if it were the same numbers on another parcel. Those are things that you're allowed to consider.
I mean, I would say for number 3 that that variance on that, or the gap that is on that side, the rear yard, is somewhat substantial. Whether that, is going to affect our decisions or not, I don't think is something we should consider. Do we answer that as yes, or?
Yeah, if you think it's substantial, but you think that that's certainly Yeah, I mean, you could answer that yes and then go on, and then still, at the end of the day, you look at all 5 factors, and then you come back to them in light of what you've discussed and thought about, and then you apply them in light of the balancing
Got it.
test.
Okay. So I'd say yes on 3. On 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. I'd say no.
No.
And then whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, with which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the Board of Appeals, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance.
It is self-created.
It is self-created. Okay. So I think, I thank you for bringing all this to, all the information to us. I think at this point, I have all my information. Are you guys okay with?
I'm fine.
Okay. So I would at this point want to entertain a motion to approve this variance.
Make a motion to the.
Actually, you know what, let me just interrupt there. One thing I didn't, where are you in terms of SECRA on this at the planning board?
I cannot give you an answer on that.
He doesn't
Okay.
represent them at the planning board.
Oh, he doesn't, okay. 'Cause I think
And don't recall.
I think I saw a letter from Burke Mealy. They're the planning board attorneys?
Yes,
Ashley Torrey wrote a letter.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's an uncoordinated review. I think it's complicated by that. I think it's made a little bit easier as an uncoordinated review. I think that the board can look at this. I think this board's part of this is, I view it as a type 2 action because it is a individual lot line, relief from the lot line requirements. So I think without affecting the SECRA process at the planning board, which is certainly not a type 2 action, I think this board could declare its role, this part of it, in an uncoordinated review as a type 2 action. So I would recommend that as part of the motion, we can declare it as a type 2 action and then also move to approve it or disapprove it.
Okay. So I guess we would need a motion to.
Actually, I'm sorry, let me correct that. If it's a type 2 action, you don't have to declare it as a type 2 action.
Okay.
It just is a type 2 action.
Got it.
So,
Okay.
yeah, but I just wanted to make sure that that we had that right on the record.
Right. So
You can go back to as though I never spoke.
So, our options are to make a motion to approve this or make a motion to not approve it.
Correct.
Okay.
Does each variance need its own?
No, you can do them in bulk.
One.
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve the four variances for this application.
And I would suggest that you add that conditioned upon and subject to approval of the planning board.
Conditioned to the approval of the planning board.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Variance has been granted.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next application in front of us is for the property of Con Kudo.
Caleb? But tell him to call me in the morning. All right, I'll tell him to come. You're welcome.
Good evening. Do we have to open the public for speaking? Okay. Can I get a motion to open the public hearing for the Con Kudo application?
Make a motion to open a public hearing on Concudo.
Second?
Was that you, Austin?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Great. Welcome. You could let us know who you are and
Sure.
talk about the project and
So, my name is Saul Ezra. I work for David DiMacco Architects. David couldn't be here. He's trying to drive back from Washington, D.C. and got caught in some traffic, so he needed me to fill in for him. So, the project in question is for Concudo, and he has an existing deck that he wanted to enclose with to make it I think the term was a 3-season enclosed porch. So because his wife has cancer and he wanted to give her he has to limit her sun exposure. So they were trying to enclose the porch in order to accomplish that. And the deck creates a few variants. One variance that is new, which is a rear yard setback, because as I understand the town code, setbacks are measured from roofed portions of structures. But other than that, everything else is pre-existing nonconformity. The lot area, the lot coverage, and the front yard setback.
If we could go through each
Sure, of
variance
course.
and you could state what you're looking to get a variance for.
Yeah, so the lot area is unchanging because there will be no change in any footprint. So the only thing that we're going to do is we're going to be enclosing the deck. So since it's technically a building addition, the nonconformity of the lot area of 10,000 square feet, even though it's supposed to be 15,000, causes a variance.
Right, so the first is on the lot area, 15,000 is required, it's 10,000.
Correct. Yeah, the existing lot area is 10,000 square feet.
Okay.
Doesn't enclosing the deck then make it a larger, doesn't the lot coverage change at that point?
The
decks are not included, aren't they? Or are they?
I think, I'm not sure how that works in terms of the lot coverage. I know that Ben Maldonado would be in charge of looking at that, and he looked at this chart, and I think we've got a chart in our packets.
That's correct.
Where he's confirmed what the requirements are on this application. So he's got the lot area at 10,000. He doesn't have that being affected by the proposed enclosure. He's got the front yard at existing 33.6. Whereas 40 is required, and the lot coverage at 30.1, but a max of 25 is required.
Right, so I guess your question is 30.1, or is 30 that's inclusive of the deck? And is that?
I was just going to say, because I thought you said that it does include the existing deck.
So for lot area, this doesn't change. The deck is not an issue, but for the lot coverage, I believe, from what I remember, the town code saying is that it's a surface that is not easily allowing infiltration from rainwater. So if you have a deck with gravel underneath it, then it's not easily infiltrating into the ground. So that's what we considered the deck to be, basically impervious, because it's a gray area. There's shading to it, between wetlands and grass and pavement. So that's what we considered it to be more impervious. So in that same vein, it doesn't have the same infiltration capacity as open field does. So that's why we considered it impervious.
Is that consistent with?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
That's consistent with the definition of
Right.
lot coverage. Yeah.
So the 30.1 is obviously inclusive of that deck.
Yeah.
Count it. Okay.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So that's why we considered it an existing nonconformity as opposed to a change like the rear yard. So yeah, so that covers 2 of the 4. And then the front yard setback, likewise, there's absolutely no changes to the front yard. So just because we're before the addition, that also triggers the confirmation by the Board of Appeals for the front yard setback.
Yep.
And lastly, the rear yard setback is the only what I understand to be the actual change in actual definition of distance from the rear yard property line. So that goes from 25.3 feet.
Because you're not including.
Because whereas we measured it from the back of the house
Right.
proper, now it's being measured from the back of the deck.
Right.
And that decreases the rear yard setback.
Okay. And then, so what's behind the house? Is it?
He has a shed and a small retaining wall and a block patio. So that's it's got pavers.
Got it.
And then other than that, it's just grass.
Great.
So
So from the
it-
back of this deck to the back property line is going to be, the proposal is for it to be 25.3.
That's correct.
Okay. And did we have questions on whether this was, it is sewer?
I
Was that?
believe. Yeah, I
No,
believe.
I think that was.
I think you're thinking of the other one.
The other application.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So this one,
that's the next
got it,
application.
got it.
Yeah.
And that is sewer.
Yeah.
To answer your question, to answer your question, we're jumping ahead, but
Okay. Okay. So questions, guys?
No, I mean, all the questions I have were answered
Okay.
when he first came in.
Yeah.
I don't have any
Good,
questions.
okay. Do we have anybody from the public here to speak about the Concudo project? It does, looks like we don't. Okay. So as long as we've got all our questions answered?
I guess I have one question.
Yep.
So, I saw that there were some shop drawings that were provided from the manufacturer of the sunroom. How do you plan on draining the water that's coming off of the building? And where is it going?
that's a great question. I don't even know if we've gotten into that stage yet. Usually, a sunroom would probably have roof leader drains that would connect to the rest of the building. It would drain to the same place that the regular building would drain to. That's probably, if I had to guess, what we were going through. I know that it's, as far as I understand, we're not at the stage where we have had to design the sunroom itself. So from there,
Is that the kind of issue that would really play into any of this? It's a deck, it gets rained on,
Yeah, I
it
don't-
rains on the ground. You know, how they convey the new stormwater, does it really matter for his?
Not to the concrete, it shouldn't.
Yeah. But I
I mean,
guess.
it could affect the house itself, because if you have it drained the wrong way, you can get water in your basement, but.
yeah.
But if there's,
I mean-
it's
It
a
doesn't
roof
affect the
now,
house.
if it's a roof, so there's going to be concentrated water.
It would be within your discretion to, if you found that to be important and you had a genuine concern about that, it's something that would fit into the 5 factors, probably the fourth factor, whether there would be an adverse effect on the environmental conditions or a detriment to nearby properties. So it's certainly a valid question to bring up and consider. And you can also get through that by just listening to what the applicant says and say, look, the water's being taken care of now, in some way, and we're confident that it's going to be taken care of in some way without knowing the precise detail. It would also be rational for you to say, I want to see the detail. So it's, all of it is rational.
I think that, it's not sloped towards the street, so I don't think it's gonna be spilling onto the sidewalk.
Correct.
That's really not, I don't think it's an issue.
It-
I withdraw my question.
No.
It's not even,
I don't think it's an issue.
yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah,
not
it just-
a gable roof
I know
either,
that-
so the water would only be coming off of one side, not 2 sides.
Yeah, as far as I understand,
Yeah.
so like,
I was just looking at the drawing and it just looks like the downspout is just dumping the water right off the side, and we usually, we're used to seeing those things either running out to block and then getting like kind of sheeted off, or it ties into a stormwater system.
right. Yeah, so it can definitely be a condition for when we go to file the building permit to make sure that they have, because it does become more of a point source as opposed to a non-point source where the water just sheets and goes wherever it wants to. But now that you have a roof, I don't know if I've ever seen people just put a roof on and call it a day. There's always some kind of consideration made to make sure that water doesn't pool in one place, because you'll always get erosion. And so it's as far as I understand, those kind of sunrooms always have at the very least some kind of roof leader system to like catch the water and put it somewhere onto concrete or drain it somewhere that doesn't
Cause.
cause adverse effects, so you don't have pooling or damage to the house, stuff like that.
One option that, if you're comfortable with it, and if it's, even a remote concern, if you were inclined to be granting the application, you could grant it subject to condition that the building inspector, the review and approval of the proper drainage of the structure.
That makes sense.
I think that sounds fair.
Yeah.
Sure.
Very good. Any other questions?
No.
Okay. I need a motion to close the public hearing.
A second motion?
No, I need a motion.
Do I need a motion? Oh, I'll make the motion.
To close the public hearing.
Close the public hearing, yeah.
I'll second the motion.
Get in there.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So I guess let's move on to the factors. Do I have to read this again, or you?
No, you can just go to each one. I mean,
Yeah.
the record will reflect that you're in front of you. You're looking at a verbatim transcript of Town Law Section 267B and looking at the balancing test in each of the 5 factors, and you can look at number 1 and, is there an undesirable change that will be produced?
So the first factor is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance.
No.
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 Number 2, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved in some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance.
No.
No.
Number 3, whether the requested area variance is substantial. No.
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 Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact in the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
No.
No.
You could say no subject to that
Subject
that
to
issue,
the
the building inspector reviewing and approving the drainage.
Okay. And the 5th factor is whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the Board of Appeals, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance.
Yes. Well, that's self-created.
I wouldn't say that's self-created if she's sick and that's the reason.
Well, fair enough.
Yeah, it's,
okay.
that's fair. I think under the law, the issue of whether it's self-created is not necessarily what human beings would consider.
No.
A normal human would consider self-created. Obviously, she didn't get herself sick.
Right.
But the zoning code, certainly the law would look at this as probably self-created, just only in that you're voluntarily looking to make a change that is contrary to code. And I think that's what that section looks at. So that's why the difference between the two. One's looking at it as a human, one's looking at it as the law.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank
I think
you.
almost all
Concerns?
I'll withdraw.
Yes.
Almost all.
Yes.
It's the rare one that's not self-created, I think.
Okay, so we can either have a motion to approve this variance or to not approve it. And if we choose to approve it, I think we might want to add that provision regarding the water drainage. So can I have a motion to approve this or disapprove it with the stated conditions?
I'll make a motion to approve this variance with the condition that the project is reviewed by and approved by the building inspector for a proper stormwater disposal to a storm water system.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, variance for this project's been granted.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Sure. Okay, our third public hearing today is the Barbosa Stonewall Road project.
I don't see
And-
anybody here.
Yep. What's it?
I don't think anybody's here for that.
That's me also.
Oh,
I'm doing 2 and 3.
it's double
Second and third, yeah. It's a double-header tonight.
And if you, can I get a motion to open the public hearing for the Barbosa project?
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, if you could, just for the record, state your name again.
My name is Saul Ezra. I work for David Nimaco Architects. David Nimaco has driving back from Washington D.C. and he could not make it due to traffic, so he asked me to fill in.
Great.
So this project is has 4 variances, one for lot coverage, one for lot width, one for front yard setback, and one for side yard setback. They are proposing a second floor addition that causes no change in building footprint or lot coverage. So the building and all impervious surfaces will stay exactly the same, but from the determination of the building inspector, the alteration in building setbacks still carries because he's doing a building addition, and therefore he's not conforming with 4 of those variances I just mentioned. So.
Okay, so just to, those 4 variances, could we just go through them?
Of course.
Quick.
So the first variance for lot coverage, the required is on 15%, and they are, he has about a 23.8% lot coverage existing, and that is not to change because the building footprint is unaltered from the proposed to existing. So that's the first one.
So the 10,000 is required, it's, a lot is 6909, is that?
Yeah, that's lot area.
Oh, what are we talking?
I'm
Your coverage?
discussing lot coverage.
Got it, okay.
Yeah,
No variance is requested for lot coverage, you were just going over that, am I correct?
well, it's an existing nonconformity. So by
Oh, the
that,
lot coverages as well?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. I didn't
Yeah.
see that on the, listed on the Ben's letter.
yeah, that's because the notice of public hearing mentions 4 variances: one for lot coverage, lot width, front and side yard setbacks. But I understand it that the required is an acre for this lot, and he only has 6,900 square feet. So that would,
Right.
I guess,
Right, but lot coverage is not going to change.
correct. And neither is lot area.
Right, so we're not getting, there's not a variance for lot coverage, correct?
You know what's interesting here, now you look at Ben's letter does not identify any problem with the lot coverage. He identifies problems with the area width and the front yard and the side yard.
Right. No change to.
I don't know that I saw,
What was the coverage issue?
Interesting. Well,
it looks like maybe it was just,
yeah, so that's interesting because the notice of public hearing
Yeah,
mentions lot
I think it's a
coverage
typo.
instead of lot area. So
I think
maybe
it's just
that's
a
the
typo.
Right.
It's
maybe
a
that's the
typo.
discrepancy.
So it's lot area.
Okay.
It's lot area.
Yeah,
Okay.
but yeah,
Yeah.
that is, okay,
Yeah.
now I understand.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
that's okay.
The lot area is required to be 10,000 square feet with central sewer facilities, and the lot is only 6,900.
Right, and it's obviously pre-existing now.
Correct, yes, and that is not to change.
Right, okay, next.
So that's the first one.
Yeah.
The second one is lot width, that has to be 75 feet, and it is only 45, also not to change. And then the last 2 are front yard and side yard setbacks. So the front yard is 25, it's supposed to be 25, and the existing and proposed is about 20. And then side yard is 15 and 30, and those are also less than required.
Got it.
But again, none of that is to change, it's just that the building is getting taller,
Right,
which in and of itself is allowed because the code, I believe, says 2 stories? 2.5 stories.
yeah, and it's within the height.
Correct.
Okay. Could you just describe the project, what exactly you guys are gonna, what they're trying to do?
Sure. The house is, as the applicant has explained to me, rather small, and it's a husband and wife and 1 kid, and they wanted to expand the house to allow a little more space for everyone. So the plans call for a second floor addition with a staircase, and the plans include a balcony on the second floor and I believe another bedroom, which is why the central sewer facilities question came up.
Right, it's central sewer.
It is central sewer. We have confirmed that he has moved a sewer basin.
Right. So what will happen in the change to, so if you look at the existing house, there's a living room, there's a deck, there's a kitchen, obviously. Where's the bedroom?
Yeah, that's kind of their problem. The bedroom is in the, right now I believe the bedroom is where the, probably, I think from what I remember, the existing living room is.
Okay.
It's kind of a combination of the two.
Got it.
So it's all yeah, it's pretty cramped.
Yeah.
So
So in the
kind of
new,
a typical summer bungalow that was.
Correct. Yeah, that's an accurate way to put it.
so how many bathrooms will be in the new home?
Right now there is a full bath, and then they're proposing another full bath.
Okay, so they're going to 2 bathrooms, full
Correct.
bathrooms. Okay. Does that present any environmental issues?
No, it would actually be the amount of bedrooms, believe it or not.
Got it.
That's how it's calculated.
Yeah, it's classified by bedroom.
It's not calculated.
So the new
by-
home will have just 1 bedroom upstairs?
Well, yes. The question, from my understanding, was raised that the den on the new second floor could be misconstrued as a bedroom. If in the case of say down the road, someone ever moves in, that would naturally be considered a second bedroom. So
I think that's why we were trying to clarify.
Correct.
Sewer versus septic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
Because
it's
we didn't know
sewer,
what the septic tank size was.
yeah,
back
if
then,
it's
right?
sewer, it really shouldn't make a
Shouldn't make a
difference.
difference.
Right.
correct.
If it was septic, it may not have made a difference.
Right.
May
Yeah.
not have, but it's at least
Yeah, look into
a consideration.
Right. Yeah. It would have had to been tested at the very least if it was a septic system. But it has central sewer, and it's within capacity. So.
Got it. So this porch on the second floor is above that existing living room?
Correct.
So it's nothing's going out further than that?
I believe it comes out 3 feet and comes in 3 feet.
Okay.
So half of the porch on the second floor is inside of on the living room, and the half is overhanging.
Okay. Does that affect the change in the footprint, though?
No, because it's not touching the ground.
Okay, but
So-
there's not a roof line change, or it's...
Not that I understand. I mean, I don't think so. No, not to my knowledge.
It probably, I think the conversation last month mentioned something about like a soffit type of underneath the
Yeah, that was
the
at the-
exposed portion of the deck.
Right.
I think we talked about the setback, the
Okay.
size. I'm sure.
And what was there was some conversation about something on the front of the house, wasn't there? Is there a
That's
cover?
where I think the soffit was, the conversation was the front of the house.
That was in relation to the front porch being enclosed. So that is not going to be enclosed.
Okay.
So that is because that would trigger front yard variance because it would be an enclosed porch. But
But it's roofed though, correct?
the front porch,
Yeah.
we are not proposing a roof to the front
It says
porch.
roof below, but...
I think the plans that you have do, but we're not going to do that because that would trigger variance.
Setback.
Correct.
Yeah, we changed it like another 7 feet or something like that.
Yeah, I remember him saying that they weren't going to do that.
Yeah, my notes clearly reflect that. That was an issue that was discussed and it was agreed last time.
But what was the agreement?
The applicant said that he would not be covering it.
Correct.
Yeah, uncovered.
So are there new plans that state there's no cover, that's not going to be covered? Or?
I don't know if I don't think we've submitted, to my knowledge, we have not submitted plans for the new porch, but we will. When it gets to the building department phase, we would invariably have to submit plans for that.
In other words, if you were to cover that, the front yard variance that you would be seeking would be greater than the 19.9 versus the 25. It would end up being,
Like 12.
more than that. So-
Correct.
So
Yeah.
the board can take some comfort level in knowing that if, for example, it gets to the point where it wants to grant these variances, the variance would be granted as requested to 19.9 instead of 25, rather than the greater one. And you could also make an explicit condition that the front porch shall not be enclosed or roofed.
That was our intention.
Got it. Okay. More questions? No? Is there anybody here from the public that would like to speak on this application? Doesn't look like it. Okay. We have all our answers. I need a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Public hearing is closed. I guess it's time for us to consider what our decision on this will be. I refer back to the 5 factors. The first factor, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance. No.
No.
2, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than area variance.
No.
No.
Whether the requested area variance is substantial.
No.
No.
Construction might be. Variance isn't.
Right. Number 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
No.
No.
Whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the Board of Appeals, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, any other comments, questions? We can either make a motion to approve or to disapprove. If we approve, I would think we might want to, do we have to have a condition of the front porch, or?
You could put that in there.
Yeah.
Sure.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah.
We don't have to, but.
Okay. So if I could have a motion to approve or disapprove with the condition on the approval.
Make a motion to approve the variance requested, assuming that the front porch is redacted from the plans. Is that
Right, you say on the condition that the front porch shall not be enclosed or roofed.
on the condition that the front porch shall not be enclosed or roofed?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Your variance is approved.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So
Thank you.
You can, we missed Dave, but you can tell him you did a good job.
Oh, thank you. He'll be back soon enough, I'm sure. Happy Thanksgiving, guys.
You too.
Thanks.
Me too.
You too.
Safe ride home.
See you tomorrow.
Yeah.
New business.
Okay, the next agenda item is a new project. It's the Clifford Patrick 17 Woodland Road project. So if you could state your name.
My name's Clifton Patrick. Hold that microphone in.
You can just move this up and down.
First time doing something like this.
And you're the owner of that
Yeah,
property?
I'm the surviving
Got it.
owner.
Okay. So if you could just describe for us what's this application and what you're looking to try to accomplish.
The house was built in 1954. My mother and I bought it in 1973. I moved out shortly thereafter, and a few years later she hired a contractor to enclose the existing concrete patio. And then she died in 1977. And then I've just recently discovered that whatever was supposed to have been done wasn't done back in 1977, give or take. So I've been told we need to get a variance because the enclosed porch is within is less than 15 feet from the side yard. It's at 10.6 roughly, which happens to be the same number as the house itself. And so we're seeking a variance for that, the 4.4 feet.
How was that figured out after 40 years?
How's it figured out?
Yeah, who?
What happened?
Yeah.
How did it come up?
How did you end up here?
I'm selling the house.
Oh, okay.
And then in selling the house, obviously, you would have to have had a permit to build.
Yeah, luckily the realtor for the buyer asked me about it, and I didn't have any idea, so he indicated that we might have to do something, so I went to the building department to find out. Initially, I thought we were grandfathered, but then realized that the zoning rules took effect in 1972. So then,
Of course.
So where the porch actually is, we're looking for, it's a side, it's
Side
on the
yard.
side of the house.
yeah, well,
Okay.
the porch is on the back of the house.
Right.
But it's, the house itself is 10.6 feet from the property line. And the closest point of the
Right.
enclosure is also about 10.6 feet from the property line.
And this is an unheated space?
Yes, just
Yeah,
what heat
looking
comes
at
in
it.
through the windows.
Got it. So
Unconditioned, I should say.
I wanted, I mean, the side yard requires 15 feet,
Yes, sir.
and it's 10.6.
And I'm assuming my mother just relied on the contractor. I'm guessing since it was fairly new process that time, he, I don't know how well it was enforced.
Those photos.
Okay. I mean, unfortunately, with changes in zoning laws and such, and,
I
permits.
wish I had figured this out sometime in the last 42 years.
Right. Right. I mean, we get situations like this where people have had things built or, and things change, and unfortunately, it triggers kind of need for variances. So, whether it's small or large, it's always good from an oversight point of view to have to be able to kind of control some of these things.
So it's given me an opportunity to learn a few things, and the pleasure of meeting all of you tonight.
Absolutely. So, and do you got any other questions on this?
No, is this section here, this little, that bottom part?
And to answer your other question about how the water's handled, the main roof line, the gutter is the way it originally was, and there's a little gutter on the back edge of the enclosure, and it has two downspouts, one in each corner, which go out into a little garden.
I take it it's been doing that since the 70s.
Yeah, it's still there. Seems to work.
I have no questions.
So this is not it's not on for a public hearing, it's on for a
Right.
first appearance, so
Right.
it would appear that if everything's in order,
Yep.
we could set it down for a public hearing ASAP.
We won't be until January. We don't have a meeting next month, unfortunately.
Well,
Because I'm not coming on Christmas.
I wouldn't mind if you changed your mind.
Right, so it's, and then probably would got it. Yep. Yeah, so what we would have to do at this point is schedule a public hearing.
Yes, sir.
Unfortunately, there's other things you have to do, for that public hearing to occur. We have all of the appropriate information from Mr. Post?
Not yet. I
Okay.
have to draft the notice.
Right, but for
And
this
then-
application to
Oh,
move
yeah, I
forward, we have all
believe he's
that.
good to go. It just, unfortunately, we don't have a meeting next month.
Yep.
And we have tentative, because nothing's been approved yet. 1, 2, 3, 4. It'd be tentative for January 28th. It's always the fourth Tuesday of the month. Would be
Right.
your public hearing.
Any more questions? Can I get a motion to set a public hearing?
I make a motion to set a public hearing on January 28th?
Yes.
Yes, January 28th.
What's that?
I was just asking if the sale was gonna be impacted by this moving
They're aware of it. I don't believe so, but they are aware that there is no meeting, the current buyer.
Okay.
Let's second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we'll set a public meeting for the next time that we meet, which will be in January.
Sorry we can't get that done sooner for you. I'm sure it's holding up your sale a bit, but, and it is what it is, unfortunately.
Yep, well, we all live and learn, and
Yeah.
hopefully I don't have to repeat this process.
Right.
Let's hope so.
Very good.
Very
We'll
good.
see you next year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Safe ride home.
Likewise.
Do we have minutes? No.
Thank you.
Have a good holiday.
Thank
Yep.
you, you too.
Good Thanksgiving.
Likewise. And Christmas, Paul, right?
Yes.
Yep, that's true. And New Year.
New Year.
Thanks so much.
All three.
So we don't have,
President's Day, Martin Luther King Day.
There's a lot going on.
Happy
What I'll do is I
Oh, maybe
will-
not President's Day, right? Is that
And I'll get the
February?
information
Yeah, you're
from
right.
the
That's-
assessor's
yeah.
office,
Gotta
and
handle
then I will
myself.
get it to you. It'll probably be after Thanksgiving that I get it to you.
That's too bad.
And then you have to mail everything out 10 days
Work in Manhattan.
before.
President's Day
Public
was such a
hearing.
dead day.
You'll have it
Because it's done a
20
travel
times.
holiday.
okay,
Right.
thanks so much.
Have a good evening.
Okay, we don't have any minutes for approval for tonight. So the last item is to adjourn the meeting. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.